Good morning, and in this video we're going to show you guys how to build a 5 by 10 foot wet wall from J&D Manufacturing. We're going to go over the rough opening of what you need to build or what you have already built, the wood layout that we need to do to actually begin this build out. We're going to go over the parts, materials, and tools you need to get the job done, and we're going to show you how to do it. So the first step of the build out is to get your wood installed for your rough opening of the wet wall. Now, the wet wall is not going to actually install to the existing building. You have to install an entire perimeter of lumber, pressure treated lumber, and the rough opening height, which is going to be from the bottom of the 2x4 to the top of the 2x8, needs to be 6 inches wider than the pad you've selected. For instance, if it's a 5-foot pad, it'll be 60 inches. We need to add 6 inches to that. So rough opening for this system, 66 inches since it's a 5-foot pad, and the length of the pad is going to be exact. So if it's a 10-foot pad, you want your rough opening from inside edge to inside edge to be 10 foot. And then you can move forward. In the instructions from J&D, you'll see that it doesn't include these verticals on the end that are actually boxing out our rough opening. But for what we have going on, our rough opening for our building, because of the inside frame and our wet wall to light trap transition, since this is an internal light depth system, we had to actually make the framing a little bit wider on the initial rough opening of the framing, and we had to bring it in a little bit to make it meet the 5 by 10 wet wall system. So we added some 2x6 on the inside edge just to bring it in to close that gap. So when you go to install this framing, your first step is to get your 2x8 installed with a 1-inch slope. And the 1-inch slope needs to be from the beginning of your rough opening, and it needs to extend 2 foot past the edge of your rough opening. So starting from here, we go to 10 foot, and then we've got 2 foot past our rough opening, and that is where our submersible pump assembly is going to sit, actually past the structure, where we're going to bring in our exterior plumbing in and, you know, fill it into there and pump it up and run it through the spray bar. Now we're going to get through showing you guys all of the different parts and pieces that we have that are going to put this system together. I've already got a couple pieces installed, but I'll go over that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what I've already installed. So right here, you'll see the spray bar, which is simply a piece of, I think it's 1.5 PVC. And it's just got some holes drilled in the bottom to let the water through. So this is actually what's going to come out and pour over top of our evap walls. And then we have this piece of extruded PVC, and this is known as the hanger track. So this is the hanger track, and it gets installed flush to the bottom of the top 2x4 at the edge of the rough opening. So, you know, this is the edge of my 10-foot rough opening, and it gets installed right on edge there. And then inside of here, we've got our brackets, our spray bar brackets, or they're actually called spray bar hangers in the PDF for the install guide. So that's what these are called. And these are actually screwed through this hanger track and into the building. That is done at 1 foot intervals off the end, and then every 2 foot going down the length of the track, no matter how long it is. So moving forward to the rest of the components, start with the big stuff, then we'll move our way over there. So right here is our actual gutter that's going to sit on the bottom of the system, where all of the excess water is going to drain into and flow out. So every kit you get is going to come with a 2-foot piece of gutter and a 10-foot gutter, which is this guy. Then moving down the line right here, this is our closed top bracket there. Excuse me, I'm just looking at the guide to make sure that I actually use the right verbiage while I'm telling you that. So this is called the pad retainer. So you'll either get a closed or an open pad retainer depending on the type of system you buy. If you purchase one through us, you're almost guaranteed going to get a closed pad retainer. So that's what this piece of metal is. And then we actually have the pad tray itself. This is what sits on the top of the gutter, inside the gutter, that actually the pads, the bottom of the pads, are going to sit into. And then moving down the line, we've got this other extruded piece of polycarbonate or PVC, and that is our spray bar cap. And this is going to sit actually above that spray bar that we already installed there, and that's what's going to cap the system. Moving down, we've got header and end components. So this sheet metal is what's going to cap the sides of the evap wall system going vertically on the end. So these are 5-foot systems. So these are the caps that are going to sit on the outside edge of the evap wall system. Moving down here, we've got some PVC components. These are the gutter end caps, which is this guy here. And we have these guys here. So you should have one gutter end cap because one side's going to be solid. The other side's actually going to be this trough here. So moving down with that, we've got the cap. We've got our splices. These are called our gutter end-to-end joiner. Then this guy right here is our pump end gutter end cap assembly. And then moving forward here, we've got our pump cover end cap assembly. So these guys are going to be on each end of the system. Obviously, one's going to be on your closed end, which is going to be your far end, and one's going to be on your distribution and return end, which is going to be your far end. We'll show you that after. And then we've got all of our brackets. These brackets actually get installed to the bottom 2x8 that I'll show you shortly. And these brackets are what actually hold this gutter here. The rest of it is going to be PVC components. These PVC components and glue are included, and that's what you're going to actually install to the spray bar on the top and down to your submersible pump. And then obviously down here, we've got our submersible pumps and our float valves and all that good stuff that, your plumber or yourself may install. And the grand finale here, your actual wet wall pads. Now, these guys here are not edge coated. These are just plain evap wall pads. You can also get them in edge coated, which is going to have a light layer of rubber on the outside. It can help prolong the life of the pads a little bit, but it also potentially can reduce the effectiveness of the pad since a portion of it is actually not getting penetrated by the water. All right, now we're going to go get to building. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here just to show you guys how I installed the first step since we didn't get it on tape before. So you'll have these little guys right here. This is a 1-inch screw. It's the smallest screws in the pack, and you're really only going to get 3 of them. So you've got one that's installed 2 inches from the outside edge of the spray bar track. You've got one that's installed 4 foot in off of one end, and that's just more or less a screw to tack it centered. And then you've got another one on the far edge here that's 2 inches in. Now these screws are really just to hold this track in place until you can move forward and install these brackets, because these brackets all have 1.25 inch lags going through the bracket, through the actual spray bar track hanger, and all the way into this 2x4 behind here. So that being said, they're really just tacks to hold it in. So we get that in place. We make sure that the bottom of this guy here is flush with the bottom plane of your rough opening, and if you need to cheat it down, whatever you need to do to create your rough opening, that's kind of irrelevant with the wood, but the placement of this track is relevant. So this always needs to be on the bottom of this 2x4 here, edge to edge, flush. So moving down the line, we've got our brackets. And like I said, we got one bracket, 1 foot in on each end, 1 foot in, and then 2 foot on center, moving down the line. Doesn't matter how big of a system you got, that rule applies. But on our 10-foot system, we got our 1 foot, 3 foot, 5 foot, 7 foot, 9 foot. Moving down there, then all we do simply is take our spray bar, toss it in there, and we're ready to move to the next step. Now our next step in the system here is getting all of our marks on our 2x8. I don't know if you can see them super well, but you'll see my lines here on our system. Now, when I built this system, I had to go a little bit longer, so I wanted to measure everything from the inside edge of my rough opening. Now, for my inside edge of my rough opening, 2 foot past is where I made this mark here, and obviously my wood went a little farther, so I just did that because I needed to nail off to this support here. So I measured off 2 foot from the inside of my rough opening, 10-foot rough opening, measured 2 foot off Then I measured 6 inches back from my first mark, and then 12 inches off my 6 inches, or 18 inches from my initial mark. So 6 inches, 18 inches, or 6 inches and 12 inches. Now, moving down the line from our inmost mark, the 18-inch mark from the edge of my pad system, I made marks 60 inches down the length of this 2x8, the length of this bottom nailer for our system. So on a 10-foot wet wall, I'm really going to only have one bracket dead in the center, and then I'm going to repeat the process on this other side. 6 inches in for my rough opening, and then 12 inches in again. So 6 inches and then 18 inches. And these are going to be the placement of my brackets, which are these guys, the gutter bracket. So we'll move forward here, and I'll show you guys how we install these brackets. I'll get you a nice visual. We'll go ahead and do it real quick. I'll put them on, and then I'll show you a close-up of how I installed them. So to get these brackets in, we've got these 1.25" lags that come with your system. Nice little baggie here. You're gonna need a 7/16 bit socket, and that's how we get these drilled in there. These are the brackets. The top of the bracket needs to be top flush with the top of the 2x6 on top of each mark. So we're gonna go through, we're gonna line them up, we're gonna build it out. All of our brackets are installed. I did them all just on the right side of my mark so that the edge of the bracket was on the edge of my lines. Top of the bracket, top flush there, and all of the screws secured, 3 in each one, the 1.25" with the 7/16 bit. We got our first bracket, our second bracket, moving all the way down the line. Got our middle one in there. Just ran flush to the top of each of them. And now on to the next step. All right. This is that spray bar cap, and we're gonna go ahead and pop that on. Probably need a rubber hammer. Now, if this system was longer than 10 foot, you would actually want to start with a cut piece. You would take one of your pieces and you would cut it in half so that when you're moving across the top, your system would be staggered so that you would have full lengths of the cap spanning in between the seams of this hanger that's on the building. So this installation, it's just 10 foot, 10 foot, everything's solid, so we actually don't need to worry about that. We're just going to start with a solid piece and get it in there. You'll see a small groove on the back of the hanger, and it simply goes into the groove up here. So I usually just rest it on top, make sure I'm lined up. Starting from one edge, we work our way down. All right, we're on to our gutter, guys. Now, when we do our gutter, we want to start on the pump end, which is the end that's sloped over here, and we want to work our way back. Now, we want to start with the 10-foot section of gutter and work our way backwards, finishing with the 2-foot section. So we want to begin by laying in our gutter, and And we want to lay it to the edge of our 2 foot past the edge of the rough opening mark, which I've already got marked right here. So we're going to lay that in there. We're going to cap it with our end gutter cap here. We're going to use the PVC primer and glue that comes with the kit, and then a marine adhesive after we have it all glued together. We're going to repeat the same process when we transition from our 10 foot to our 2 foot gutter using one of these gutter splice brackets here. And we're going to do the same thing. J&D gives you a nice little brush there, so you'll be able to brush the glue actually into the seams, and that's super important before setting it. And then once it's set, hold it tight for 30 seconds. We're going to let it sit, let it harden up, and then we're going to apply the marine grade adhesive around all the seams and smooth them out so we don't have any leaks. Start with the primer. Really get a healthy amount of that in there, especially since most stuff that we're always doing is in a kind of a dirtier job site, so we always want to be real careful about making sure your seams are nice and clean. And then make sure with these guys, when they cut them at the factory, there's all this frayed crap on here. And it really helps to spend a little bit of time and just get all that nonsense off of there, so you're not dealing with it while you try to install this. So you got that all clean, Get her primed up. Cool. Get that all in there. All right, now we're primed. I always like to do this middle bracket first. Makes for an easier job here. And I'm really gonna glob this glue on the center here and then push it in with the brush. Or actually, I'm gonna go straight for this perimeter. Get both sides nice and glued. Yep. Okay. And then I'm just gonna apply a little bit to this outside edge here. Never have enough glue. Last thing you want is for this system to leak. And I'm just gonna come in quick and just kind of give it a quick brush, try to push that glue around a hair. And then start from the bottom. I always wear gloves when I do this because you really gotta get kind of involved with these brackets because the PVC is fairly loose. Always kind of try to start with the top and work my way down and in. Just come over here, start with the little piece. Try to repeat that process if you can. Stuff is pretty difficult. Okay. All right. Now that we have our bracket seated, always come in after and try to put a little extra glue, make sure my seams are tight. Then I just make sure I hold this tight. Sometimes it's actually better to leave this out for a minute. Oh, primer down. Good thing all our gluing's done. Yeah, I'm gonna let that actually set outside here. Seems like it's holding in place a little better. Sometimes the gutter can push it out a little bit. Now, while we let that set, just want to continuously double check that our glue is in place correctly. Give a little tap if you need to. Okay, I'll let that hang. Now we're gonna put our end cap on. Same process. Primer it up. Get our edges clean. All right, I'm gonna actually move you guys a little closer. All right, I figured I'd move you guys a little closer so you could see a better angle of what we're working on here. So we got this edge primed and we are installing our cap on this end. So this is our cap. This is the closed end. So we're on the left side here. So we got everything primed up. Take our glue. Make sure we put a healthy amount on here. Okay, and then just a little extra on here, never hurt anyone. Okay, start with the bottom. Try to get that seated in. Sometimes it's actually easier to start with the top, especially because these plastics get so warped on you. A lot of fun to install. That's why I always wear gloves, because it ends up being a freaking mess by the time you're finished up with it. This is probably least favorite part of this build. Okay, once it's in there, tap, tap. Make sure we're completely seated in there and it's not affecting our other gutter joint either. Okay. Well, my gloves are properly ruined, so I'm gonna change those out. Okay. Nothing like putting gloves on sweaty hands. Ay, ay, ay. Jesus Christ almighty. All right. So we want to make sure that that's nice and seated in there. Make sure all of our connections here are still good while we're down here. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to our end cap. Now, I can already tell that I'm not going to be able to put it in that way, so I'm going to flip this fun bucket around here. In retrospect, probably would have been better to install all this on a sawhorse or something actually, but you work with what you got. Okay, same thing here. All of our lovely glue and primer. All right, so this is properly filthy, so try to clean as much of this dust off first that we can, because dust certainly doesn't help glue set. All right, for the good stuff. Let's get this primed. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Same thing. Try to clean this up as much as we can. All right, and this is obviously going to get installed so that the pump ends out. Can pump up. Same thing as before. Glue the hell out of it. Don't be shy. Most of this will get pushed out while we're installing it anyways. Okay. I'm going to start from the top. The business end. Try to get as lined up as I can. Try to not struggle as much like I do. Oh, yes. All right, that's how we do it. Okay, so that was a little smoother than the last couple. All right, let all this set. Keep double checking all your seams, pushing them as you need to. All right, we're gonna let that set for a minute and go ahead and get ready to apply some of this marine adhesive sealant to here we go. Seems my caulk guns had better days. So I'm gonna start from the middle you know, work my way down here. Let me fix this up though, because this is not. Oh, I'll tell you what. Don't forget to take that out. That will certainly help your situation. So, there we go. Okay. Don't be shy with this stuff either. This is really what's going to keep your system from leaking. All right. Open the tip of this a little more. She's not doing what I want her to do. Oh. All right. That'll do us a little bit better here. Oh. Well, that's going to be a little heavy, but like I said, we're not trying to be shy here. Okay, so I'm going to put a little more down here because it's not going to be pretty, but it's not going to leak. Well, told you it wasn't going to be pretty. So this is kind of mixing with the glue a bit, so we're going to want to kind of wait for it to dry a little better, but realistically we just want to make sure that those seams are real nice. Okay. Cool. All right. Okay. Cool. So, seam 1 caulked. Now, we'll kind of continue and we'll do that along all of our edges. Oh, okay. All right, now we're gonna make the same mess as before. Really smooth and push this out into there. Yep. Okay. Smoothing this all out. Put a little extra here. I really wanna. This is where all the water is gonna be. really coming down, so we're not going to want to play any games there. All right, last glove. Let's make it count here. Come on. My glue's a little tacky, so I'm gonna hold off on that one for a minute. Come back to it. All right, so we've got our gutter put inside the brackets, and we've got it at our 2 foot mark past the building. We got everything glued, everything caulked so that it's all sealed up and ready to go. Normally on the instructions, it will tell you to cut 2 foot of this pad off to start your system because it's assuming you have more than a 10-foot system. So on our sake, the whole purpose of cutting that pad is to leave 2 feet of gap here, right here at the edge, and that's just for your pump system to sit. So it's very misleading when you read these instructions, and you want to be careful not to cut that pad because obviously we need 10 feet of pad. If we had cut that, we'd only have 8 feet and it wouldn't work. So on a 10-foot system, you do not cut your gutter tray. So we're going to take this guy, we're going to get it installed into here, and it's going to sit there, and it's going to sit a little bit recessed, and we're going to get it in. Okay, now that we're going to install the gutter pad tray here, you'll see these lips on the outside edge right there and there. Those are actually going to sit on top of this gutter, and they're going to seed right into here. So I always start in this end. I'm going to work my way down because this guy's got a lot of flex, and this is actually kind of a little bit of a tricky process. So just be patient and seed it in as you can. So we're going to get in over here, try to line ourselves up the best we can, and I like to lift it up and just try to work my way into here. Get it where it more or less needs to go. Sort of push it back, and then try to work myself down without having this whole thing pop out on me. Like I said, this is a difficult process. Sometimes it's easier to try to get this whole side done. Okay, so something they will not show you in the instruction manual is the fact that you are going to need to notch around these brackets here because this lip can't make it over the top. So I figure out where they are. I use a speed square and I make a couple notches. I want to make sure my pad's on the edge there. I come around this side and I repeat the process. Now when we notch this, we only want to notch this lip. We don't want to notch the whole thing, just this edge so that it can flow over that gap. So that should snap off just like that. And you got this little notch here, should work. Then repeat the process on the other side. Head, come up top. Give this a nice, just a point to break on. Sure, there's other ways to do this, but this is what I got. Snap, beauty. All right, go give her a test fit. Let's see what we got here. Okay. That's because I am cool. All right, so I'm gonna get this whole edge in first. Okay. And my notch looks good. Front, back, all good. And then I'm gonna work my way from the back here. This is where the fun really begins, because this is just a pretty difficult process. So it is easier if you have two people, but I just kind of get my thumb behind there. Try to get this spread open. Oh, that's fun. Okay, so with installing this gutter tray, it's going to show the gutters sitting in between these 2 points because the gutter can't span over this division bracket for the gutter. So with the tray itself, on the outside, I really just took a circle blade skill saw, I used a fine tool, and I went ahead and I notched a little space for the bracket to sit inside of. And then I notched the back, and I notched the entire thing out because it needs the space. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop it in the tray, seating the front edge of this lip into the edge of the gutter, and we're going to work our way down to install this entire gutter tray here. All right, so we are getting into our end kits. So we've got one piece of metal for each side. Flange is going to go towards the outside. So what I mean by that is that when these guys install, they're going to go on the wood inside edge, flush to your rough opening, and then you'll be able to match this top edge with your spray cap assembly and make sure that the PVC can flow freely through it. Once you have it lined up, you'll see all these screws on the side. I like to throw one in. Once I have one in, I just double check that everything's good. I made sure that I had clearance. I put my cap on for my pump assembly in just to make sure that that all lined up good. I made sure that the end of this was sitting over the top of the tray because this is going to be the edge of the pads that get installed. And then, yeah, I just check it out. And then I'm going to run screws down the whole inside line of this, all the provided holes. Okay, then I'm going to move over to the other side and I'm going to repeat the process. Same thing as before, you're going to want to install it so that the flange is pointing the outside. Pop it on. Go ahead and line it up. Make sure we're good up top. Make sure that the PVC can flow freely through. Looks good, looks good. Pop one in the middle to hold it. Make sure we're still flush. Going over the tray, everything looks good. Okay, pipe's good, going through each side. Everything's lined out good. We're getting close to the finish, now we're on to the next step. So we're getting on to our last step. We're gonna be installing the pads to the wet wall itself. So we got our tray in, we got our bar roughly where it needs to be. We've got it exposed to the end, we got both of our ends screwed off. And now we're going to just take all of our pads and slide them in, stacking them in from the right to the left. I already put one in. You can see right there on the right there. And then, yeah, we're just going to stack them in all the way from the right to the left. If you struggle getting the last one in, you know, we'll just push that to the side and get it installed. Make sure you guys can see the whole thing. Oh, yeah. So I usually put them in underneath the PVC, slide them in, that's it. Just want to watch out for the brackets, kind of lift them up. As you get to them, drop your panels in. Once we get done with this, our top bracket will actually hold these into place. You do want to make sure that you put the right side up. There will be an arrow on these pads that says this side up. You want to make sure that you do that accurately. So we'll get this guy in first, push it into the corner, and then our last one, if we did everything right, should be a pretty snug fit. Beautiful. That's satisfying. So now that that's all installed, everything looks great, everything's tight. We're gonna loosen all these guys up top, excuse me, and get our top bracket installed that's actually gonna hold this in place. Get these all loosened up. Preston, you want to give me a hand quick? So this is pretty simple. You'll see these holes lined up here. All we're doing is compressing our system. Now, I want to get behind this, Preston. Lift it up in the air.
Oh, I tucked mine behind that.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I don't think it's supposed to, is it? Did you get behind it, no problem?
Yeah.
Okay. Take these bolts out. Just take these bolts clean out. No, it'll be, take this off for a second. Take all these bolts right out. It'll be way easier. So yeah, take the bolts completely out and slide this in. So we look at this edge right here. We just want to make sure that that edge is lined up nice.
Beautiful.
Lined up good, everything looks good. Make sure these screws are making contact. This can move around a little up top. Make sure that that's all seated in, and now we've got compression against the top of the pad. And then we're just gonna take a flathead and tighten all of our stuff down. This will actually keep our pad secured up top. Then when you go to replace your pads, all you do is take this bracket off and you're good to go. Okay. There you have it. That is the wet wall installation, and the only thing remaining to do is the plumbing. It'll be nice and cool. Well, I hope this video is helpful, guys. We're done with the pad installation. We did all the components that we can install outside of the plumbing. The plumbing for the wet wall we'll be doing in our part 2 of the series, and in our part 3 of the series, we're gonna show you how our light trap systems are ducted to funnel the air through this wet wall and into our greenhouse system. So if that's of interest to you, or if that's something you bought with your kit, or if you're just doing a wet wall, maybe all of those won't apply to you. But in our next series, we'll go over the pump installation, the float valve, all of the PVC that's connected to this whole thing, and we'll show you the thing running and in action. Thanks for watching.